The morning sun spilled over the red brick chimneys of Marland Mansion, casting golden light across its manicured lawns. Inside its halls, quiet, regal, steeped in family memories, Leonard Grant returned home early, carrying a bouquet of tulips and a soft, boyish smile he hadn't worn in years. He didn't tell anyone. It was meant to be a surprise for his mother, Catherine, a small gesture to brighten her day. But just past the foyer, where the light hit the polished marble just right, time collapsed. His fiancée, Anne Graham, elegant, poised, the woman he had once pictured beside him for life, stood mid-motion, her stiletto heel raised high in fury. Below her, Catherine lay crumpled on the floor, her cane knocked aside, her arms trembling as she tried to push herself upright. Leonard froze. The tulips slipped from his fingers. They hit the floor soundlessly, softer than the scream building in his chest. Anne's voice sliced through the silence, cruel and venomous. "Why don't you just die already, you pathetic old hag?" The words didn't register at first. They floated above the marble, above the heartbreak, above the world Leonard thought he lived in. But when they landed, something inside him shattered. Leonard Grant had been betrayed before. In business, in boardrooms, even in the headlines. But nothing could have prepared him for this. This was not a rival. This was the woman he trusted to share his mother's home, his mother's heart. He had built his life from nothing. A Tulsa boy raised by a widowed nurse who worked night shifts and made miracles stretch between paychecks. At 39, Leonard was a billionaire by merit, not inheritance. And Catherine Grant had been there for every step of that rise. She was the reason, the root. And now she was on the ground, hurt, humiliated, by the very person he had brought into their lives. Anne spun around at the sound of his footsteps, her face drained of color, her mouth opened, but no lie could outrun the truth now. Leonard said nothing. Not at first. Just dropped to his knees, wrapped his arms around his mother, and held her like he did as a boy during storms, when he was small, and she was the unshakable one. Catherine wept, not from the pain in her ribs, but from the devastation in her son's eyes, from the fact that she hadn't kept this from him well enough. And Anne, she began to plead. But Leonard was no longer listening. The illusion was dead, and so was any future that included her. What followed would upend not just their engagement, but Leonard's entire world. Because that moment, those fallen tulips that raised heel, marked the beginning of a transformation far deeper than heartbreak. But before we begin, if you believe that true love is measured by respect, kindness and second chances, not appearances or wealth, then please take a second to like, comment, share and subscribe to our channel. Your support means everything to us. It began, as most revolutions do, with the truth laid bare. And to understand why it hurt so much, you have to know where Leonard Grant came from. But in that moment, kneeling on the cold marble floor of Marland Mansion, his mother trembling in his arms, Leonard wasn't a billionaire. He wasn't a tech mogul or a man of influence or someone people bowed to in boardrooms. He was just a son who had come home to find his world unraveling in the cruelest way imaginable. Catherine clung to him, her frail hands gripping the back of his jacket like she was afraid he might vanish. Her sobs were quiet, held in the way only mothers know how, to spare their children more pain. Leonard's mind raced, but his body stayed frozen. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, drowning out the sound of Anne's heels clicking toward them. "Leonard," she said, her voice suddenly soft. "This isn't what it looks like." He didn't look at her. Anne crouched beside them, her hand reaching toward his arm. She fell. I was trying to help her stand. You startled me, that's all." Catherine flinched when Anne got too close. That was all Leonard needed. "Don't," he said, his voice low and flat. "Don't touch her." Anne blinked, withdrawing her hand like it had been burned. "Leonard, baby, you're not seriously—" He looked at her then, just once. His eyes, usually warm, thoughtful, were empty, cold, like something vital had been drained from him. Anne's face twisted, trying to mirror concern. "You know how your mother gets when she's tired. She forgets things. Maybe she tripped and—" "Enough," he said. The word echoed. Catherine stirred weakly in his arms. "Leonard, sweetheart, don't be angry." She was crying again, but this time her voice was steadier. She looked up at him with pleading eyes. "It's all right. I'm okay." But it wasn't okay. And Leonard wasn't angry. Not exactly. He was broken. He stood slowly, helping Catherine to her feet. His hands were gentle, sure, but his posture, his silence, felt like a storm pulling in its winds. Anne hovered nearby, nervous now. "Please, we can talk about this. You don't want to make a scene. There's no reason to—" "Go to your room," Leonard said. Anne froze. "What?" "You heard me. Go upstairs. Pack your things. You're not staying here tonight." "Leonard, you're overreacting. This is insane." He didn't respond, just guided Catherine slowly toward the sitting room, one arm around her shoulders, his other hand gripping the cane she couldn't reach earlier. Anne stood rooted in place, panic creeping up her neck. "Are you seriously throwing me out over a misunderstanding?" Leonard paused in the doorway. Still without looking back, he said, "Don't speak to my mother again." The words landed like stone. Anne's breath hitched. She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came. She watched them disappear down the hallway, the quiet click of Catherine's cane the only sound left behind. The rest of the house stayed silent. That night, Leonard didn't return to his room. He didn't eat. He didn't speak to the staff, who had quickly learned not to ask questions. Instead, he stayed in the guest room adjacent to Catherine's, sat beside her as she lay beneath soft covers, one wrist bandaged from the fall, eyes still glassy with disbelief. "I'm sorry," she whispered, over and over. "I didn't want you to find out this way." Leonard didn't reply. He just held her hand, staring at the wallpaper as though it could explain any of this. Catherine turned her head toward him. "I didn't say anything because I thought maybe she'd grow out of it. Maybe if I loved her the way I love you, she'd soften. She didn't." "She hurt you," Leonard said quietly. "She hated that I had your heart before she did." He closed his eyes, and for a moment he wasn't sure he could open them again. Everything he had believed, the dinners, the laughter, the plans, they felt like shadows now, painted illusions, a house of glass already cracking before it shattered. He stayed by Catherine's side until her breathing slowed, until she drifted into sleep. Then he sat in the armchair across the room, staring out the window, the tulips still lying on the floor in the foyer where they had fallen. Outside, the wind swept softly across the grounds. Inside, a man who once had everything was quietly realizing what truly mattered, and what had almost been lost. It's easy to love the version of someone you meet under chandeliers. That's where Leonard first saw Anne Graham, beneath the glittering lights of a Dallas fundraiser for pediatric cancer research. She was standing beside the dessert table, dressed in emerald green silk, her laughter delicate as crystal. He was there on behalf of his foundation, half listening to speeches, more comfortable with spreadsheets than champagne flutes. But Anne, she moved through that room like she was born for it, confident, charming, and magnetic in a way that drew people in without even trying. Their first conversation was about foster care reform. She spoke with conviction and clarity, and Leonard, who rarely let anyone past his reserve, found himself staying long after the event had ended just to talk to her. It felt like fate, or something close. Within weeks, they were inseparable. She was attentive, thoughtful, full of warmth that made even Leonard's sharpest edges soften. For a man whose life had always been about control and precision, Anne was spontaneity, wrapped in elegance. He introduced her to colleagues, to friends, to the board of his non-profit. Everyone adored her. Everyone, except Catherine. From the beginning, she watched Anne carefully, not with hostility, but with the quiet caution of a woman who had weathered more storms than she cared to count. She never voiced her concerns outright, but she noticed the small things, like how Anne rarely asked about Leonard's upbringing unless it involved his achievements, how she seemed distracted when Catherine spoke about nursing or their life back in Tulsa, how she once accidentally served meat at a dinner after Catherine had mentioned her vegetarianism for health reasons. Anne brushed it off with a smile. "Oh, silly me, I must have forgotten." Catherine nodded politely, but she never forgot the look in Anne's eyes that night, less apology, more performance. Still, Leonard was happy, and that mattered more than anything. He had spent most of his life building walls. Anne, it seemed, had found a way through them. She made him feel seen, celebrated. She said all the right things about family, community, faith. When she put her hand on his chest and said she wanted to grow old in Marland Mansion, raising children, hosting holidays, he believed her. He had no reason not to. At least, not then. But Anne hadn't grown up dreaming about love. She had grown up chasing status. Born to a father who measured affection in credit limits and a mother who spent more time at spas than at home, Anne learned early that image was everything. Her childhood was a showroom, beautiful, polished, hollow. She didn't want a partner. She wanted a future. And Leonard Grant, with his billion-dollar tech empire and his unguarded, grieving heart, looked like the perfect ticket. To the world, she was perfection. Behind closed doors, though, Catherine saw the mask slip. When Leonard left for business trips, Anne barely pretended anymore. Her patience thinned, her smiles faded. She dismissed Catherine's stories mid-sentence, ignored her requests for help. Once, during a winter storm that knocked out power for half a day, Anne lit candles, but only in her own suite. Catherine was left to fumble through the dark alone. "She doesn't like me," Anne once said casually to a friend on the phone, not realizing Catherine was within earshot. "She's jealous, always hovering like I'm stealing her little boy." Catherine never repeated it to Leonard. She told herself it wasn't her place, that he needed this, needed someone. She'd survived worse, after all. And perhaps Anne would soften with time. People grow into their roles, don't they? But kindness can't be forced. And cruelty, no matter how well hidden, has a way of seeping through the cracks. Anne perfected the art of public grace and private disdain. She baked cookies with Catherine when Leonard was around, took selfies with her for charity galas. But when no one was watching, her tone turned sharp, her help disappeared. More than once, she forgot Catherine's medication refills only to laugh it off later. And Leonard, he was blind, not from ignorance, but from hope. He wanted to believe so badly that this was the woman who would love him without agenda, that the life they were building was real. He missed the subtle shifts, the quiet cruelty, the forced smiles that didn't quite reach Anne's eyes when Catherine walked into the room. Looking back now, every memory had begun to feel like a lie, wearing expensive perfume. He remembered the time Anne insisted on redecorating the East Wing without asking Catherine first. When his mother voiced her discomfort, Anne claimed she'd simply misunderstood. Leonard took Anne's side. He remembered when Anne started calling Catherine by her first name instead of Mrs. Grant, a small thing, but always with a forced sweetness that grated. "Catherine," she'd sing as if addressing a pet. Leonard had smiled at the time. He thought it meant they were getting closer. Now he knew better. The truth, when it comes, doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers for years before finally being heard. Now, with the illusion shattered, Leonard sat in the stillness of his guilt, haunted by all the signs he hadn't seen, or hadn't wanted to. His love for Anne hadn't been foolish, but it had been blind. And in that blindness, his mother had suffered. The image of Catherine on the marble floor would never leave him. Neither would the truth. The life he thought he was building had been a house of cards, and Anne had been smiling the whole time she stacked it, and now it was all coming down. The news broke on a Tuesday morning. It started with a single headline on a gossip blog, barely sourced, likely a guess. Leonard Grant and Anne Graham call off wedding. Within hours, it was everywhere. Magazines that once celebrated their love story with glossy covers now ran pieces dissecting their silence. Fashion influencers speculated about dress fittings suddenly cancelled. Society columns whispered about a fight, a scandal, a secret. Leonard said nothing, not to the press, not to the board, not even to his closest friends. But Anne, Anne made noise. She showed up unannounced at the mansion 2 days after she'd been asked to leave. Security turned her away. She cried at the gate, called his office, left voicemails that teetered between desperate and defiant. "Leonard, please, we need to talk." Then, "I know this looks bad, but you know me. You know me." Then, quieter, "Don't let your mother come between us." And finally, "If you don't call me back, I swear to God I'll tell them everything. You're not the saint they think you are." Leonard listened to none of them. He didn't need to. He had seen enough. But he did agree to see her once more, on neutral ground, in a quiet suite at the Fairmont Hotel downtown. No lawyers, no entourage, just the two of them. She arrived looking polished, grief curated like a fashion choice. Her makeup was dewy, her eyes red-rimmed in a way that suggested tissue dabbing, not sobbing. She wore the bracelet he bought her last Christmas, the one she'd once claimed wasn't really her style. "Leonard," she began, stepping forward. He didn't move. She faltered. "I don't know what she told you, but this isn't fair. You're punishing me for a misunderstanding." He sat calmly, his posture perfect, his face unreadable. On the coffee table between them sat a small black velvet box. Anne stared at it. Then at him. "This is it?" she asked. "After everything?" Leonard nodded once. "Yes." Her eyes widened. "You're seriously giving up on us because of her?" "No," he said. "I'm giving up on the version of you I thought was real." Anne's breath caught. "You're making a mistake. You think anyone else will love you the way I did? Look at what we had, look at what we built." "We built nothing," he said quietly. "I built a dream. You moved into it." Silence stretched. Anne's lip trembled, but the tears didn't come. "Leonard," she whispered, softer now, "I love you." "No, you loved the life," he replied. "And I loved the lie." He pushed the box across the table. "You should have it. I don't want it back." She stared down at the ring, the one she'd once posted on Instagram with a caption about forever, and for a moment her mask cracked. But only for a moment. "You'll regret this," she hissed, standing suddenly. "You think the world's going to applaud you for dumping me? For siding with some washed-up old nurse over your own future?" Leonard looked up at her then, his gaze steady. "My mother raised me on integrity. You can't buy that. You sure as hell can't fake it." She didn't respond, just stormed out, heels clicking like thunder. That evening, Leonard issued a statement to the press. He stood at a small podium in the garden of Marland Mansion, cameras flashing like lightning as reporters jostled for sound bites. He didn't wear a tie. His suit was simple, his voice steady. "Out of respect for those involved, I won't be sharing the details of the broken engagement," he began. "I ask for privacy for myself and my family, but I do want to say this." He paused. "My mother, Catherine Grant, is the strongest person I know. Anyone who knows her knows the kind of heart she has. She has my full love and support now and always." He didn't name Anne. He didn't need to. The message was clear. The next day, he cleared his calendar. No galas, no tech expos, no boardroom appearances or interviews. He began working from home, conducting quiet reviews of his company's internal policies, especially those related to elder care, employee support, and family leave. He didn't disappear, but he withdrew. The man who once flew coast to coast weekly now spent his mornings in the garden with Catherine, helping her water her roses. They sat under the pergola with tea and talked about Tulsa, about his childhood, about how silence sometimes carries more power than headlines. When reporters called, he didn't answer. When colleagues asked questions, he said only, "I'm focusing inward right now." Behind the scenes, he was restructuring his foundation, directing more funding toward elder wellness initiatives. He began researching quiet ways to support caregivers, not just the elderly, but the people who keep them going when no one else is watching. There was no victory parade, no revenge, just distance, grace, and the slow, quiet work of rebuilding what mattered most. Because when trust is broken, the best thing a man can do isn't shout about it. it's become someone worth trusting again. Guilt doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in slowly like fog rolling through familiar streets, turning everything you once knew into a question. In the days following the press conference, Leonard found himself waking before the sunrise, not out of obligation but from something he couldn't name, some weight pressing on his chest, a silence too loud to ignore. He would sit at the edge of his bed, the mansion quiet around him, staring out the window toward the east lawn, where his mother used to walk before her hips began to fail her. The tulips he had once brought home had long since wilted, their petals pressed between the pages of a book he couldn't bring himself to open. Most mornings he found her in the garden, Catherine wrapped in a cardigan, her grey hair pinned back loosely, hands buried in the soil, like it was the only thing that made sense anymore. She never brought up Anne, not directly. But one morning, as they sat beneath the climbing wisteria, Leonard asked softly, "How long?" Catherine didn't look up. She ran her fingers over a sprouting lavender stem, her expression unreadable. "A while," she said. "A few months. Maybe more." Leonard swallowed. "And you didn't say anything?" She finally met his gaze. Her eyes, though tired, held no bitterness. "You loved her," she said gently. "And I didn't want to be the reason that love cracked." Leonard looked down at his hands. "She could have hurt you worse. I let her into our home. I gave her access to you, and I didn't see it." "You weren't supposed to," she said. "That was never your burden." But it was. He felt it in his bones. Later that evening he sat alone in his study. The room was warm, lit by the fireplace, but he couldn't feel any of it. On the desk in front of him sat a fresh, leather-bound journal, blank pages waiting for something real. He opened to the first and wrote only 3 words. "How didn't I know?" He journaled like that every night. Short sentences, questions with no answers, lists of memories that now felt like illusions. He wrote about Anne's laugh, about how she folded her napkin like his mother used to, about the way he excused her indifference as independence, about how he mistook politeness for patience, and deeper still, he wrote about himself. About the boy who grew up in a small Tulsa apartment, watching his mother cry behind the bathroom door and pretend she was fine the next morning. About the man who spent his life building enough success to ensure she'd never suffer again, and still failed to protect her when it mattered most. He stopped going to corporate meetings entirely. He left the suits hanging in his closet and started wearing old flannel again, shirts he hadn't touched in years. He spent afternoons driving around the back roads of Ponca City in his pickup truck, windows down, mind blank. Sometimes he'd stop at the diner on Main Street where he and Catherine used to split cherry pie when money was tight. The waitress still remembered his name. "You okay, Mr. Grant?" she asked one day. He smiled politely, trying to be. But the truth was messier. He was grieving, not just the loss of Anne, but the part of himself that had trusted so blindly, the part that thought love could be built purely on admiration and appearances. He'd spent years defining success by expansion, by market value, by the applause of a world that knew his name but not his story. Now, all of that felt hollow. It wasn't until one quiet evening, sitting beside Catherine as she finished a puzzle in the sunroom, that he finally voiced it. "I thought I had everything figured out," he said, voice barely above a whisper. Catherine didn't answer immediately. She placed a piece of sky into the corner, then looked over at him. "Leonard," she said softly, "do you remember what you told me when you got your first check from the company?" He blinked. "I said I was going to buy you a car." She smiled. "You said you were going to take care of me, that it was finally my turn to rest." He lowered his head. "I never needed a mansion," she continued, "or a ring, or even a car. I just needed my son to come home. And you did. When it counted." He closed his eyes. The weight of her words landed heavy, and somehow, gently. In that moment, he realized something simple, something profound. He couldn't change the past, but he could build a future not out of guilt, but out of truth. The next morning, he opened his journal again. This time, he didn't write about Anne. He wrote about Catherine's hands, calloused from years of nursing, about the way she hummed when she folded laundry, about the quiet strength of someone who endured pain not because she had to, but because she chose love over resentment. And from that place, something inside Leonard began to shift. The grief remained, the guilt didn't vanish, but beneath them something new was beginning to grow, not just healing, purpose, and maybe, for the first time in a long time, peace. Some transformations don't come with grand gestures. They begin in silence, in early mornings, in slow steps, in quiet decisions made with steady hands. For Leonard Grant, change began the day he cleared his corporate calendar. He didn't sell his companies. He didn't vanish into the wind or make some dramatic declaration. Instead, he walked into the boardroom of his flagship tech firm, placed a single sheet of paper on the table, and announced, "From this point forward, I'm reallocating 70% of my time and resources to a new mission." No one argued. They had seen the shift in him. He still wore the title of CEO, but something deeper had taken the wheel. That something had a name: Catherine. In the months that followed, Leonard launched the Catherine Grant Foundation, a non-profit devoted entirely to elder care, elder rights, and the fight against silent abuse inside homes that looked perfect from the outside. The mission was personal, raw, and clear. No one's mother, father, aunt, or grandparent should suffer alone in a house full of whispers and neglect. Not if he could help it. At first, people were surprised. Billionaires rarely pivot. But Leonard didn't need applause, he needed action. And this time, the return he was after wasn't profit, it was protection. The foundation started small, a single hotline for anonymous elder abuse reports in Oklahoma. Then came mobile response units, nurses, caseworkers, legal support, available for in-home assessments, no red tape. The cornerstone, though, was the Catherine Home Companion Program, a comprehensive training initiative for home care professionals. It taught more than just medical protocol. It taught empathy, communication, dignity. Leonard personally funded full scholarships for hundreds of students, most of them single mothers, veterans, and people who'd cared for relatives with little to no formal training. The motto of the program was simple: care that sees, not just serves. And every graduate left with a pin in the shape of a tulip. Word spread fast. Not because Leonard sought attention, but because the work spoke louder than press releases. Families reached out from all across the state. Some shared stories of neglect, others simply thanked him for starting something others hadn't dared to. But while his foundation grew, Leonard himself was shrinking back into something truer. He moved most of his operations out of the corporate tower in Dallas and back to Ponca City. He traded keynotes for local roundtables. He walked to the farmers' market on Saturdays, nodded to strangers at the bakery, held the door open for teachers and retired postmasters who didn't care how many zeros were in his net worth. He began calling up old friends from college, reaching out to mentors he'd lost touch with, sitting down with former classmates over coffee, not because he needed anything, but because he was learning how to live again without the armor of ambition. In the evenings he'd come home, change into jeans and a hoodie, and help his mother in the garden. Catherine was healing, slowly but surely. Her ribs mended. Her voice grew stronger. But what changed most was the way her smile returned. Not the one she wore for the world, but the one Leonard remembered from childhood, the one she used when dancing barefoot in the kitchen or humming off-key to country songs on the radio. One afternoon, as the sun filtered through the pergola, Leonard caught her humming again. He looked up from trimming the hedge and saw her kneeling beside the rosemary bush, laughing softly at something the neighbor's dog had done. It hit him all at once, how close he'd come to losing that, to letting it be stolen by someone who never deserved to stand in her presence. Later that night, Catherine found a gift on her pillow. It was a small engraved plaque that read, "You taught me how to build a life. Now I'll spend mine building better ones for others." She didn't say anything, just placed it gently on her nightstand and whispered, "That's my boy." Leonard began journaling again, but now his pages held something different. He wrote about progress, about the elderly man who had called the foundation to report his daughter's boyfriend stealing his medication, and how the team helped relocate him to a safe home. About a 22-year-old graduate from the Companion program who had started her own local caregiving agency. About the smiles, the letters, the peace. Success, he now realized, wasn't in headlines or valuations. It was in the way someone's voice changed when they knew they were safe. In the way his mother slept soundly again. In the way his own heart, once broken, now beat with purpose. He had lost a fiancée. He had lost illusions. But what he found was something far more rare. A new reason to rise in the morning, and a mission worth more than gold. Anne Graham was used to being photographed. She knew her angles, knew how to hold a gaze just long enough to look engaged, warm, desirable. For nearly a year, her image had been everywhere, from charity galas in Dallas to luxury lifestyle spreads in glossy magazines. She was the fiancée of Leonard Grant, and in that world, she had been untouchable. Until she wasn't. The unraveling didn't happen all at once. It came in cracks. First, a cancelled invite to a high-profile wedding, then a lukewarm response from her PR agent when Anne tried to schedule a comeback interview. "Let's just give it a few weeks," the woman had said gently. "Let the air clear." But the air never cleared, because while Leonard chose silence, the internet did not. It began with a simple tweet, 7 words from an anonymous account. "Ask the house staff what really happened." By the next morning, screenshots were circulating. A former housekeeper from Marland Mansion, who had signed an NDA long expired, posted a detailed thread describing Anne's true nature. How she would berate Catherine for being slow. How she demanded staff ignore her mother-in-law-to-be. How she once mocked Catherine's mobility issues while sipping champagne. "She wasn't just cold," one post read. "She was cruel behind closed doors." The story caught fire. Within 48 hours, a viral exposé ran on a digital investigative site, complete with testimonies, blurred video snippets from internal security footage, and statements from multiple former employees. None of them named Leonard directly. They didn't have to. The truth, once hidden behind manicured smiles and designer heels, was now on full display. Brands that once collaborated with Anne ghosted her. Sponsorship deals evaporated. Her inbox, once filled with invitations and influencer packages, now sat quiet, except for the interview requests she didn't want to answer. She tried, at first, to control the narrative. She posted a tearful Instagram video, framed by soft lighting and gentle piano music. She wore no makeup. Her voice shook as she spoke about being misunderstood, about the dangers of internet witch hunts, and how Leonard and I simply had different visions for our future. It was theatrical and completely ineffective. The comments were brutal. Few bought the performance. Most saw right through it. "You didn't just lose Leonard," one user wrote. "You lost the mask." Desperate, she pivoted. Anne tried to rebrand as a mental health advocate, posting about healing and journaling and growth. She launched a podcast, The Other Side of Glamour, but it never cracked the charts. The sponsors were gone. The listeners never showed up. The world that had once worshipped her perfection now wanted nothing to do with her. Behind closed doors, Anne spiraled. She moved out of her high-rise condo after falling behind on payments. Friends stopped responding to her texts. Even the ones who had once defended her in group chats began to quietly distance themselves. Not because Leonard had turned them away, but because they'd finally seen who she really was. She tried reaching out to him once. Just one message. "I'm sorry." He never replied, because Leonard had already let her go. He wasn't following her downfall. He wasn't tracking the exposés or reading the tweets. He had too much life in front of him to waste another breath on what had already rotted. While Anne clung to fading influence, Leonard was opening new wings of the Catherine Grant Foundation. While Anne recorded videos in dimly lit rooms, Leonard was speaking at senior centers, offering hugs to caregivers who cried in his arms. While Anne searched for redemption in a broken mirror, Leonard wasn't looking back. She had built her life on borrowed identity, on proximity to a man she never truly loved, only leveraged. And when that scaffolding was pulled away, all that remained was what she had always feared, herself. Not the curated self, the real one. And now the world knew her too. No rebrand could change that. No apology could erase it. In the end, Anne wasn't destroyed by Leonard. She was destroyed by the choices she thought no one would ever see. And while Leonard moved forward, heart heavier but soul clearer, Anne stood still in the ruins of a life built on lies. Love, when it returns after betrayal, doesn't arrive loud or lavish. It shows up gently, without pretense, without performance, just presence. Leonard met her on a sun-drenched Thursday afternoon. The Catherine Grant Foundation was hosting its first statewide caregiver appreciation event. Local volunteers, nurses, and home aides gathered beneath a white canopy, strung with paper lanterns. There were folding chairs, lemonade pitchers, and laughter that felt easy, not performative or polished, just real. She was standing by the sign-in table, helping one of the elderly guests clip a name badge to her cardigan. Her voice was soft, her touch light, her smile sincere. Her name was Eva Morales. She wasn't from money. She wasn't part of any elite circle or Forbes list. She was a community nurse from Stillwater, raised by her grandmother and fiercely proud of it. She'd joined the foundation as a volunteer months earlier, but this was the first time Leonard had really seen her. Not just noticed her, seen her. She didn't know who he was at first, or maybe she did, and just didn't make a show of it. Either way, it was refreshing. She asked him questions that weren't about stocks or headlines. She asked about Catherine, about what inspired the foundation, about whether he preferred tea or coffee on cold mornings. And Leonard, who had spent most of his life being studied like a headline, found himself wanting to answer. They talked again the following week, then again the week after that, and over time something began to grow between them. Not fireworks, not obsession, but something steadier, calmer, a current beneath the surface, the kind of love built more on listening than longing. Eva didn't ask for anything. She never tried to impress him. She simply showed up, present, honest, curious. She shared stories about her patients, her upbringing, the way she and her grandmother used to press flowers in books, just to remember the shape of a season. One afternoon, after helping replant the herb garden with Catherine, she stayed for tea. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the veranda. Catherine watched her with quiet interest, then leaned over to Leonard when Eva excused herself to wash her hands. "She's kind," Catherine said. Leonard smiled. "She is. And she doesn't walk around like she's owed something." He chuckled. "No, she just walks." Catherine's eyes softened. "Good. You deserve someone who walks beside you, not ahead of you, or behind." That night, Leonard stood at the window of the guest room, no longer needed for worry or watchfulness, and watched Eva's car pull away down the drive. The taillights faded into the dusk, but something warm lingered. Hope. He hadn't realized how long he'd been holding his breath until he finally exhaled. Their relationship moved slowly. They didn't rush into declarations or labels. They spent time in the garden, walked through the community together, shared quiet meals without pressure to entertain or perform. Eva asked about Anne only once. Leonard told her the truth, without drama, without bitterness. And Eva simply nodded, then reached across the table and held his hand, not out of pity, but because she knew what it meant to love someone through their healing. Catherine took to Eva more and more. They baked together, played dominoes, swapped stories about strong-willed sons and stubborn recipes. The mansion, once echoing with tension and unspoken grief, began to fill with laughter again, the kind that spills from the soul. Even the rooms Anne had once redecorated with cold perfection began to change. Leonard had them repainted, not with opulence, but with comfort. Soft earth tones, family photos, a reading nook with warm throws and shelves lined with novels Catherine loved, and Eva kept sneaking onto his list. Marlin Mansion was no longer a stage for appearances. It was becoming a home again, not just for Leonard and Catherine, but for a growing circle of friends, neighbors, and foundation staff who began gathering for weekly dinners and Sunday afternoon teas. There were no scripts, no masks, just people, flawed, kind, real. And Leonard, once guarded by necessity, began to let them in. He found himself laughing more, sleeping better, waking up not to strategy meetings, but to the sound of his mother humming in the kitchen and Eva making coffee just the way he liked it, strong with a splash of oat milk. He still journaled, but now the pages held fewer questions and more gratitude, fewer regrets, more roots. Because sometimes love isn't about the passion that consumes, it's about the presence that remains. And in the heart of the mansion where betrayal once broke him, Leonard Grant found something far rarer than wealth or headlines. He found peace, and the kind of love that grows only where truth is allowed to bloom. Time has a way of polishing pain into wisdom if you let it. For Leonard Grant, the journey from heartbreak to healing didn't follow a straight line. It moved in quiet waves, forward, then back, then forward again, each step less about rebuilding the life he'd lost, and more about reimagining the life he wanted to lead. It had been over a year since that day in the foyer, when tulips hit the floor and illusions shattered. Since then, everything had changed, not in headlines or viral posts, but in the way Leonard carried himself, in the way he showed up, not just for the world, but for the people who mattered most. He was no longer just a billionaire. He was a protector, a son, a man of purpose. The Catherine Grant Foundation had expanded far beyond what Leonard first envisioned. What began as a localized effort to safeguard elders in Oklahoma was now a national network of care, fully staffed, fully funded, and fully focused on one mission: dignity in aging. There were now satellite offices in 12 states, emergency teams, grant-funded respite programs, legal resources for families caught in quiet battles, scholarships for aspiring caregivers, and at the heart of it all stood Catherine, once a silent sufferer, now a voice heard across the country. She'd become the face of the Foundation's public campaign, seen, heard, safe. Her photo, smiling gently, eyes steady, graced posters, newsletters, and speaking events from California to Connecticut. When she spoke at the National Council on Aging, her voice was calm. "We don't get weaker with age," she told the crowd. "We just need someone to remember we matter, and that someone should always start at home." The standing ovation lasted nearly 3 minutes. Leonard watched from the wings, tears pricking the corners of his eyes, not from sadness but from awe. This was his mother, and now she was everyone's reminder of what strength truly looked like. Back at Marland Mansion, life had settled into something beautiful, not perfect, but full. Eva had become part of the rhythm. Some days she helped with foundation outreach, other days she simply sat with Catherine on the porch swapping recipes and laughter. Leonard still worked, of course he did, but his work no longer revolved around margins or markets. It revolved around moments, like the letter he received from a 17-year-old caregiver in Montana who said the Catherine Grant Scholarship saved her life, or the voicemail from an elderly man in Michigan, crying as he thanked Leonard for sending someone who listened, not just logged data. Success, for Leonard, was no longer measured in dollars. It lived in quiet victories, in dignity restored, in the way his mother smiled without flinching, in the warmth that had returned to the mansion's once haunted walls. One morning, as the sky shifted from violet to gold, Leonard and Catherine sat on the balcony that overlooked the eastern lawn. The tea between them steamed in matching porcelain cups, lavender blend just the way Catherine liked it. They said nothing for a while, just watched the horizon. And then Leonard spoke. "I thought I lost everything that day," he said quietly, his voice low, steady. Catherine didn't look at him. She just reached over, laid her hand gently over his, and replied, "You found everything that matters." The breeze moved softly around them, not rushing, just passing through. And for the first time in a long time, Leonard felt whole, not because of what he'd regained, but because of what he had chosen to protect: love, integrity, family, legacy, not written in stone or in wealth, but in the hearts touched by his mother's strength, and his decision to honor it. And that, he knew, was a life worth building, a life truly rich.
Camila Rodriguez was reviewing quarterly reports when her phone rang. The caller ID showed Luna's name and she almost didn't answer. Her younger sister rarely called during work hours from Hawaii, where she managed the Pacific Pearl Resort. Something in her gut told her to pick up. "Camila, I need to ask you something and I want you to sit down." Luna's voice was tight with tension. "I'm fine standing. What's wrong?" Camila set down her pen, suddenly alert. "Where is Brandon right now?" The question caught her off guard. "He's on a business trip in Denver. Some conference for his consulting firm." "Why are you asking?" The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Camila could hear ocean waves in the background and the distant sound of hotel guests chatting. "Camila, he's not in Denver. He's here at my hotel in Hawaii. He checked in 3 days ago with a woman named Marion Chin. They've been acting like they're on their honeymoon." The words hit Camila like a physical blow. Her legs suddenly felt weak and she grabbed the edge of her desk. "That's impossible. Brandon wouldn't. He's never even been to Hawaii." "There's more." Luna's voice was gentle but firm. "He's been using your ATM card for everything. Room service, spa treatments, excursions. I saw the name on the credit card receipts when housekeeping brought them to the front desk. Camila Rodriguez Williams. That's your married name." Camila's vision blurred. 7 years of marriage. 7 years of trust, of believing every business trip story, every late night at the office explanation. Her hands shook as she tried to process what Luna was telling her. "Are you absolutely certain it's him?" Her voice came out as a whisper. "I took his photo when he was at the pool this morning. I'm sending it to you right now." Camila's phone buzzed. She opened the message with trembling fingers. There was Brandon, unmistakably Brandon, lounging by a crystal-clear pool with his arm around a beautiful Asian woman in a red bikini. He was laughing at something she was saying, looking more relaxed and happy than Camila had seen him in months. The woman was young, probably in her late 20s, with long black hair and a perfect smile. "Oh my God," Camila whispered, sinking into her chair. "Oh my God, Luna. How long have they been together? How long has this been going on?" "I don't know, but from the way they're acting, this isn't their first time together. They know each other well. Really well." Camila's mind raced through the past months. All those weekend business conferences. The times Brandon claimed he needed to work late. The mysterious phone calls he would take in another room. The way he had become distant, less affectionate. She had attributed it to work stress. How could she have been so blind? "Camila? Are you still there?" "I'm here." Her voice sounded strange even to herself. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle this." "You don't have to handle it alone. I have an idea, but first I need to know something. Do you want to try to work things out with him, or are you done?" The question should have required thought, but Camila's answer came immediately and with surprising clarity. "I'm done, Luna. Completely done. If he wanted to cheat, he could have at least had the decency not to use my money to do it." "Good. Because I think we can make him pay for what he's done." "Really pay? What do you mean?" "I mean he's trapped here for 3 more days according to his reservation. He has no idea that I'm your sister. I kept my maiden name when I took this job. He thinks he's completely safe living it up on your dime with his mistress. But we can change that." Camila felt something she hadn't expected, a spark of anger, sharp and clean. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that a man who steals from his wife and flaunts his affair in public deserves to be exposed in public. And I'm thinking that my hotel has security cameras everywhere, a full staff who are very loyal to me, and about 200 guests who would be very interested to know what kind of man Brandon really is." For the first time since answering the phone, Camila smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. "Tell me more." "First, I need you to do something. Call your bank right now and put a hold on that ATM card. Don't cancel it yet, just put a temporary hold. We want him to find out at the worst possible moment." "Okay, I can do that." Camila was already reaching for her laptop to access her online banking. "Second, I need you to book a flight to Hawaii. Tonight if possible. There's something beautiful about confronting a cheating husband in paradise, don't you think?" "Luna, I can't just leave work and fly to Hawaii." "Camila, your husband is spending your money on another woman in one of the most expensive resorts in the Pacific. You're a marketing executive with 3 weeks of unused vacation time. I think you can manage a few days off." She was right. Camila had been working 60-hour weeks for months while Brandon was apparently living a double life. She deserved better than reviewing quarterly reports while her world fell apart. "What's the plan exactly?" "I'm still working out the details, but here's what I'm thinking. Tomorrow night, the hotel is hosting its weekly luau. It's a big event, live music, traditional dancing, about 300 guests. Very public, very festive. Very hard to escape from once you're there. And I think that would be the perfect time for Brandon to receive some unexpected news about his wife. Very publicly. Camila felt her pulse quicken. You want to expose him at a party? I want to give him exactly what he deserves. Public humiliation to match his public betrayal. But only if you're ready for that. Only if you're sure you want revenge instead of reconciliation. Camila looked at the photo on her phone again. Brandon's arm around another woman. Both of them laughing without a care in the world, spending her hard-earned money on their fantasy vacation. The decision was easy. I want revenge, Luna. I want him to feel exactly as humiliated and betrayed as I feel right now. Then book that flight. And Camila? Yeah. Pack something stunning. If we're going to destroy your cheating husband's perfect little vacation, we're going to look amazing doing it. As Camila booked her red-eye flight to Hawaii, memories flooded back with cruel clarity. She and Brandon had met 8 years ago at a marketing conference in Las Vegas. He was charming, successful, and persistent in the best way. Their courtship had been a whirlwind of romantic dinners, weekend getaways, and long conversations about their future together. They married after a year of dating in a beautiful ceremony at the Chicago Botanic Garden. Camila remembered feeling like the luckiest woman alive as she walked down the aisle toward Brandon's smiling face. He had looked at her like she was the only person in the world. For the first few years, their marriage had been everything she had dreamed of. Brandon's consulting business was growing, and Camila was climbing the ladder at her marketing firm. They bought a beautiful house in Lincoln Park, traveled together, and talked about starting a family. Brandon was attentive, romantic, and supportive of her career. But looking back now, Camila could see when things started to change. About 2 years ago, Brandon began traveling more frequently. His consulting clients were apparently spread across the country, requiring longer trips and more time away from home. At first, Camila was understanding. She was busy with her own career and appreciated having time to focus on work without feeling guilty. The romantic gestures became less frequent. The long conversations about their future stopped happening. When Brandon was home, he seemed distracted, always checking his phone, always having important calls to take in private. Camila had mentioned it a few times, but Brandon assured her it was just work stress. He was building his business, he said. Making sacrifices now so they could have a better future together. What a fool she had been. Camila pulled up their joint bank account on her laptop and scrolled through recent transactions. Her stomach turned as she saw the pattern. ATM withdrawals in cities that didn't match Brandon's supposed business destinations. Restaurant charges for 2 people in locations he had never mentioned visiting. Hotel charges in places he claimed to be working from home during. The Hawaii charges started appearing 3 months ago. Not just this trip but previous trips. How many times had Brandon told her he was in Denver or Phoenix or Seattle while he was actually in paradise with another woman? She clicked through to their credit card statements and found more evidence. Jewelry purchases she had never received. Expensive lingerie from stores she had never been to. Charges at romantic restaurants during times when Brandon claimed to be in boring business meetings. The financial betrayal was almost as painful as the emotional one. Camila made good money, but Brandon had apparently been spending it as fast as she could earn it. Their savings account, which should have had enough for a down payment on a bigger house, was nearly empty. The retirement fund they had been building together was thousands of dollars lighter than it should have been. Her phone rang. It was Luna calling back. I booked the flight, Camila said without preamble. I land in Honolulu at 6 a.m. your time. Perfect. I already have your room ready. And Camila, I've been doing some detective work. What kind of detective work? The kind that involves chatting with my housekeeping staff about the lovely couple in the Ocean View suite. Marion is apparently a yoga instructor from Portland. She told the spa attendant that she and her boyfriend have been together for 8 months and that this is their 3rd trip to Hawaii together. 8 months. Camila felt like she had been punched in the stomach. 8 months of lies. 8 months of Brandon coming home to her after spending romantic vacations with another woman. There's more, Luna continued. She also mentioned that they're thinking about moving in together when they get back to the mainland. Apparently, Brandon told her he's been divorced for 2 years and that his ex-wife was controlling and didn't understand his need for adventure. He said I was controlling? Camila's voice was dangerously quiet. According to Marion, you were also financially irresponsible and couldn't manage money, which is why Brandon had to take control of all the finances. That was the final straw. Camila had been managing their finances since they got married because Brandon claimed he didn't have the patience for it. She paid all their bills, managed their investments and had built their savings from nothing. The idea that he was telling his mistress she was financially irresponsible while using her money to fund his affair was beyond insulting. Luna, I don't just want to embarrass him at the luau. I want to destroy him. I was hoping you'd say that. Because I've been thinking about this, and I have some ideas that go way beyond public humiliation. I'm listening. First, we're going to let him dig himself deeper. I'm going to make sure he and Marion have the most romantic, expensive few days possible. Room service, couples massages, sunset sailing. All on your ATM card, of course. Why would we want him to spend more of my money? Because every charge is evidence. Every receipt with his signature is proof that he was here with her using your money. When you file for divorce, you're going to want documentation of every single dollar he stole from you. Camila hadn't even thought about the divorce proceedings yet, but Luna was right. She would need evidence of Brandon's infidelity and financial betrayal. Second, we're going to make sure Marion knows exactly what kind of man she's been dating. She thinks she's in love with a divorced entrepreneur who's free to travel the world with her. She has no idea she's actually the other woman in a marriage that she's helping to destroy. You think she doesn't know he's married? I'm certain of it. I've been observing them, and she acts like a woman who believes she's found her perfect man. She's talking about their future together, posting photos on social media, planning their next vacation. If she knew he was married, she would be more discreet. The thought that Marion was an innocent victim in this situation made Camila feel slightly better. She didn't want to hurt someone who didn't deserve it, but she also couldn't let Brandon continue his deception. So what happens at the luau? That's where we spring our trap. But first we have some preparation to do. And Camila? Yeah. Bring copies of your marriage certificate, your joint bank statements, and any love letters or photos Brandon has given you over the years. We're going to need proof that you're his wife, and we're going to need it to be undeniable. As Camila hung up and began packing for Hawaii, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months: purpose. For too long, she had been drifting through her marriage, ignoring the signs that something was wrong, making excuses for Brandon's behavior. Now, finally, she was going to take action. She packed her most beautiful dresses, her best jewelry, and her highest heels. If she was going to confront her cheating husband in paradise, she was going to look absolutely stunning doing it. The last thing she packed was her wedding album. Every photo of their supposedly perfect life together, every memory of the man she had thought she married. She was going to need those photos as evidence, but more than that, she was going to need the reminder of what Brandon had thrown away. As her plane lifted off from Chicago, Camila stared out at the city lights growing smaller below her. When she returned, she would be a different person. She would be free. Camila's flight landed in Honolulu just as the sun was painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Despite her exhaustion and heartbreak, she couldn't help but appreciate the beauty of the moment. Hawaii was everything she had imagined it would be, and under different circumstances she might have been arriving here for her own romantic vacation with Brandon. The irony wasn't lost on her. Luna was waiting at baggage claim, and Camila felt a rush of gratitude at seeing her sister's familiar face. They hadn't seen each other in person for almost a year, but Luna looked exactly the same, petite, energetic, with their father's dark eyes and their mother's determined chin. "You look terrible," Luna said by way of greeting, pulling Camila into a fierce hug. "Thanks." That's exactly what every woman wants to hear after a 6-hour flight and discovering her husband is a cheating liar. "I meant you look tired. But don't worry, we're going to fix everything. Starting with getting you settled and fed, and then we're going to plan Brandon's downfall in detail." The drive to the Pacific Pearl Resort was breathtaking. Camila had seen photos of Hawaii, but experiencing it in person was completely different. The ocean was a blue she had never seen before, the mountains were lush and dramatic, and the air smelled like flowers and possibility. "The hotel is beautiful, Luna. You've done amazing work here." "Thanks. It took me 3 years to get the management position, but it was worth it. I love this place and the staff has become like family to me. Which is why they're all going to help us with Operation Karma." Operation Karma? That's what I'm calling our plan to give Brandon exactly what he deserves. I may have mentioned to a few key staff members that we're going to be dealing with a situation involving a cheating husband, and let's just say they're very enthusiastic about helping. They pulled up to the resort and Camila gasped. The Pacific Pearl was absolutely stunning, with traditional Hawaiian architecture blending seamlessly into the natural landscape. Palm trees swayed in the ocean breeze, and she could see glimpses of pristine beach through the tropical vegetation. "This must cost a fortune to stay here." "It does. Your husband has expensive taste when he's spending your money." Luna led Camila through the lobby, which was open air and elegant, with local artwork and fresh flowers everywhere. A few guests were having breakfast on the terrace, and Camila found herself scanning their faces, looking for Brandon. "They're not down yet," Luna said, noticing her sister's nervousness. "They rarely emerge before 10 a.m. Apparently they're not morning people." Camila's room was on the same floor as the ocean view suite where Brandon and Marion were staying, but far enough away that there was no chance of an accidental encounter. It was beautiful, with a private balcony overlooking the ocean and a king-sized bed covered in tropical print linens. "I had room service send up breakfast and coffee," Luna said. "Eat something, shower, and then meet me in my office at 9 a.m. By then I'll have all the information we need about Brandon's schedule for the next 2 days." After Luna left, Camila sat on her balcony with her coffee and tried to process the surreal nature of her situation. Less than 24 hours ago, she had been reviewing quarterly reports in her Chicago office, completely unaware that her marriage was a lie. Now she was in paradise, plotting revenge against the husband who had betrayed her in the most spectacular way possible. Her phone buzzed with a text from Brandon. "Missing you, babe. Denver is boring as usual. Can't wait to get home and see you. Love you." The casual cruelty of the lie made Camila's hands shake with rage. He was probably sending that text from bed with Marion beside him, both of them laughing about how easy it was to deceive his stupid wife. She screenshot the message. It would be useful evidence later. At 9 a.m. sharp, Camila knocked on the door of Luna's office. Her sister was waiting with a pot of coffee, a legal pad covered in notes, and a determined expression. "Okay, here's what I've learned," Luna began without preamble. "Brandon and Marion have been here for 4 days. They're scheduled to leave Sunday morning, which gives us 3 more days to execute our plan. Their daily routine is pretty predictable. They sleep late, have room service breakfast, spend the afternoon at the pool or spa, and eat dinner at one of the resort's restaurants. Have you been watching them? I've been observing them professionally. As the resort manager, I make it my business to ensure all guests are having a good experience. And let me tell you, they're definitely having a good experience. On your dime." Luna slid a folder across the desk. "These are copies of all their charges since they arrived. Couples massage, $400. Sunset sailing excursion, $300. Dinner at our most expensive restaurant, $250. Room service champagne and strawberries, $150. It goes on and on." Camila flipped through the receipts, each one a fresh stab of betrayal. He spent over $2,000 in 4 days. And that's not counting the room, which is $800 a night. I want to confront them right now. I want to march up there and tell Marion exactly what kind of man she's dating. I know you do, but we need to be strategic about this. If you confront them now, privately, Brandon will find a way to spin the story. He'll claim you're crazy or vindictive or that you've been separated. Marion might believe him, and he'll just take her somewhere else to continue the affair. Luna was right, but the waiting was torture. "Tonight is the weekly island culture show," Luna continued. "It's held on the beach, and attendance is basically mandatory for couples staying in the premium suites. Brandon and Marion will be there. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that would be a perfect opportunity for you to see them together, to understand their dynamic, and to prepare yourself emotionally for what comes next. You can observe them without being seen. And then? Tomorrow is the big luau. That's when we strike. But first, I need to know exactly what you want to achieve here. Do you want Brandon to suffer maximum embarrassment? Do you want Marion to know the truth about him? Do you want to humiliate him so completely that he can never show his face in public again?" Camila thought about it. What did she want? She wanted Brandon to feel as betrayed and humiliated as she felt. She wanted Marion to know that the man she thought she loved was a liar and a cheat. She wanted consequences that matched the magnitude of Brandon's betrayal. "I want it all," she said finally. "I want him exposed, humiliated, and left with nothing. I want Marion to know exactly what kind of man she's been sleeping with. And I want everyone at this resort to know that Brandon Rodriguez Williams is a cheating, lying thief who steals from his wife to fund his affairs." Luna smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Perfect. Because I have a plan that will give you everything you want and more." "Tell me." "Tomorrow night's luau is being filmed by a local television station for a travel segment. We're going to have cameras rolling when Brandon's perfect little fantasy world comes crashing down around him." Camila felt a thrill of anticipation mixed with nerves. "You want to destroy his life on television? I want to give him exactly the same level of public humiliation that he gave you. He flaunted his affair in public, using your money to do it. Fair is fair. What about Marion? Marion is going to learn some very uncomfortable truths about her boyfriend. But she's also going to be given a choice about how she handles that information. If she's truly innocent in this, she'll do the right thing. They spent the next 2 hours planning every detail of Operation Karma. Luna had contacts throughout the hotel staff who were eager to help, and she had already spoken to the television crew about featuring a special surprise during their luau coverage. By the time they finished planning, Camila felt more confident than she had since receiving Luna's initial phone call. Brandon thought he was safe, thought he had successfully deceived everyone. He had no idea that his wife was less than 100 yards away, planning his complete and total downfall. "There's one more thing," Luna said as they wrapped up their meeting. "I need you to be absolutely sure about this. Once we put this plan in motion, there's no going back. Your marriage will be over, and it will be over very publicly." Camila didn't hesitate. "My marriage is already over. Brandon ended it the moment he decided to betray our vows and steal my money to do it. I'm just making sure he faces the consequences." "Good. Then let's destroy your cheating husband." That afternoon, Camila positioned herself at the resort's beachside cafe, strategically hidden behind palm fronds and oversized sunglasses, waiting to see Brandon and Marion together for the first time. Luna had told her they usually appeared at the pool around 2 p.m., and Camila needed to prepare herself emotionally for what she was about to witness. At 2:15 they emerged from the hotel like something from a romantic movie. Brandon was wearing swim trunks and a linen shirt, looking more relaxed and happy than Camila had seen him in years. Marion was stunning in a turquoise bikini, with a flowing cover-up and a wide-brimmed hat that made her look like a movie star. What hurt most wasn't just seeing them together, but seeing how Brandon looked at Marion. He was attentive and affectionate in a way he hadn't been with Camila for at least 2 years. He held her hand, whispered in her ear, made her laugh. This wasn't just a physical affair. Brandon was emotionally invested in this relationship. They found lounge chairs by the pool, and Brandon immediately began applying sunscreen to Marion's back, his touches lingering and intimate. Marion leaned into him, completely comfortable and trusting. She had no idea she was dating a married man. Camila took photos with her phone, documenting their obvious intimacy and happiness. Each picture felt like evidence for her divorce case, but also like another nail in the coffin of her marriage. Luna appeared at her table, carrying a tropical drink. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine. Seeing them together like this, it's making this easier. I can see how happy he is with her, how invested he is in this relationship. This isn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This is Brandon choosing someone else over his wife." "Good. Because I have some updates on our plan for tomorrow night." Luna sat down, angling herself so she could also observe Brandon and Marion. "I've been talking to the staff and we have some interesting information. The bartender at the poolside bar says Brandon has been bragging about his successful business and his freedom to travel anywhere he wants. He told the bartender yesterday that he's never been happier in his life. Of course he's happy. He has a wife at home paying all the bills while he plays house with his girlfriend in paradise. There's more. The concierge who booked their sunset sailing trip says Marion asked about romantic restaurants for their 6-month anniversary dinner. She wants to surprise Brandon with something special." 6 months? "But Luna, you said she told the spa attendant they'd been together for 8 months. Luna's eyes lit up. "Exactly. Which means Marion isn't entirely sure about their timeline, which suggests Brandon has been feeding her different stories. That's going to be very useful information tomorrow night." They watched as Brandon and Marion ordered drinks from the poolside bar. Even from a distance, Camila could see that Marion was completely smitten. She hung on Brandon's every word, laughed at all his jokes and looked at him like he hung the moon. "I actually feel sorry for her," Camila admitted. "She really thinks she's found her perfect man. She has no idea that her perfect man is committing fraud to pay for their perfect romance. Speaking of which, I have an update on the financial situation." Luna pulled out her tablet and showed Camila a detailed breakdown of all charges to her ATM card over the past 3 months. The total was staggering, over $15,000 spent on Brandon's affair. "This goes way beyond just this Hawaii trip," Luna explained. "He's been taking her to expensive resorts all over the country. Look at these charges: Napa Valley, Martha's Vineyard, Key West. Your husband has been living like a billionaire playboy on your salary." Camila studied the charges and a pattern emerged. Every trip coincided with times when Brandon had told her he was traveling for work. Every romantic weekend getaway had been funded by money from their joint account. "I've also been doing some research on Marion," Luna continued. "She's actually quite successful in her own right. She owns a yoga studio in Portland and teaches at high-end retreats. She could probably afford to pay for her own vacations. So why is Brandon paying for everything? Because he's trying to impress her. He wants to be the generous, successful businessman who can sweep her off her feet. He's using your money to play a role that doesn't actually exist. Camila watched Brandon order another round of expensive cocktails, charging them to their room. Her room. The room she was unknowingly paying for. Luna, I want to make sure Marion knows that Brandon could never actually afford this lifestyle on his own. I want her to understand that every romantic gesture, every expensive dinner, every luxury vacation has been funded by money stolen from his wife. Don't worry. Tomorrow night, Marion is going to learn some very uncomfortable truths about her boyfriend's finances. As they continued watching, Marion pulled out her phone and began taking selfies of herself and Brandon. She was clearly planning to post them on social media, proudly showing off her romantic vacation with her amazing boyfriend. Has she posted photos of them together before? Camila asked. I've been checking her Instagram account. She's been posting photos of their trips for months, but she always tags the locations without mentioning Brandon specifically. She calls him my love or my travel partner, but never uses his name. That's smart of her if she thinks he's divorced. She's probably being respectful of his privacy. Or Brandon asked her not to use his name on social media. Either way, she's been very discreet, which is going to make tomorrow night even more shocking. Luna stood up. I need to get back to work, but I want you to stay here and continue observing them. Get comfortable with seeing them together, because tomorrow night you're going to have to face them directly. After Luna left, Camila ordered her own tropical drink and settled in for a long afternoon of surveillance. It was torture, but it was also necessary. She needed to understand the dynamic between Brandon and Marion, needed to see exactly what her husband had chosen over their marriage. As the afternoon wore on, she watched them swim together, share intimate conversations, and generally act like a couple deeply in love. Marion was affectionate and adoring, and Brandon was attentive and romantic. They looked like the perfect couple enjoying the perfect vacation. The irony was that they probably were perfect together. In another universe, where Brandon wasn't married and wasn't funding their relationship through financial fraud, they might actually have a beautiful future ahead of them. But in this universe, Brandon was a cheating husband and a thief, and Marion was an unwitting accomplice to the destruction of his marriage. Tomorrow night, that reality was going to come crashing down on both of them. As the sun began to set, Brandon and Marion gathered their things and headed back to the hotel, probably to get ready for dinner at another expensive restaurant. Camila finished her drink and went back to her room to prepare for the island culture show that evening. She had seen enough for one day. Tomorrow she would see much more. The next morning, Camila woke up with a mixture of excitement and terror. Today was the day she would confront Brandon and expose his affair in the most public way possible. Luna had texted her early with final details about their plan, and everything was falling into place perfectly. At 8 a.m., Camila met Luna in the hotel's business center to go over their strategy one final time. They had printed copies of Camila's marriage certificate, joint bank statements, and several photos of her and Brandon together over the years. They had also prepared a detailed timeline of Brandon's lies and financial betrayals. The television crew arrives at 4 p.m. to set up for the luau coverage, Luna explained. They're expecting to film a typical resort event with happy vacationing couples. They have no idea they're about to witness the most dramatic confrontation in Hawaiian resort history. Are you sure they'll keep filming when things get intense? Are you kidding? This is going to be the kind of reality TV gold that stations dream about. They'll film everything and it will probably end up going viral online. Camila felt a flutter of nervousness. Maybe this is too extreme. Maybe I should just confront them privately. Luna grabbed her sister's hands. Camila, Brandon humiliated you publicly by flaunting his affair where people could see them. He used your money to do it, making you an unwitting participant in your own betrayal. He deserves exactly the same level of public humiliation. She was right. Brandon had made his affair as public as possible while keeping Camila in the dark. Fair was fair. Besides, Luna continued, Marion deserves to know the truth about the man she thinks she's in love with. She's been posting photos of their romantic trips online, telling her friends and family about her amazing boyfriend, making plans for their future together. She has a right to know that their entire relationship is built on lies and theft. What if she doesn't believe us? That's why we have documentation. Marriage certificate, joint bank statements, photos of you and Brandon together. We have proof that can't be disputed. They spent the morning coordinating with key staff members. The bartender who would be serving drinks at the luau was prepared to provide a microphone if needed. The photographer who documented all resort events had been briefed on the situation and would make sure to capture everything. Even the musicians who would be performing had been given a heads up that there might be some drama during their set. At noon, Luna received a call that made their plan even more perfect. "That was the concierge," Luna said, hanging up with a satisfied smile. "Brandon just booked a private dinner on the beach for tonight, right before the luau starts. He's planning to propose to Marion." Camila felt like she had been slapped. He's going to propose? But we're still married. Apparently, he told the concierge that he's planning to surprise his girlfriend with a promise ring and a proposal to move in together. He wants the dinner set up right on the beach where everyone can see them. The audacity was breathtaking. Brandon was planning to propose to another woman while still legally married, using money stolen from his wife to pay for the ring and the romantic dinner. "This changes everything," Camila said. "We can't let him propose to her with a lie. We have to stop him before he gets that far." "We will. But first, let's use his plan to our advantage. He wants a public proposal on the beach? Let's give him the most public proposal in the history of Hawaiian resorts." They revised their timeline. Instead of waiting until the luau was in full swing, they would confront Brandon during his romantic beach dinner with Marion. It would be even more dramatic, even more humiliating, and even more devastating. "I need to see the ring," Camila said. "If he bought it with our joint account, I want to know how much of my money he spent on jewelry for his mistress." Luna made some calls and discovered that Brandon had indeed purchased a ring from the resort's high-end jewelry boutique. The cost, $3,500, charged to Camila's credit card that morning. "He bought her a $3,500 ring with my money," Camila said, her voice deadly quiet. "He's planning to propose to another woman with jewelry that I unknowingly paid for. And we're going to make sure Marion knows exactly how that ring was purchased." At 2 p.m., they did a final walkthrough of the beach area where Brandon's romantic dinner would take place. It was a beautiful spot, with tiki torches, a table for two set up in the sand, and a perfect view of the ocean. Under different circumstances, it would have been incredibly romantic. "The television crew will be setting up their equipment right over there," Luna pointed to an area about 50 feet away. "They'll have a perfect view of the dinner table and their cameras will catch everything." "What about other hotel guests?" "The beach will be full of people getting ready for the luau. Brandon chose the most public spot possible for his proposal. Everyone will see what happens." At 4 p.m., Camila retreated to her room to get ready. She chose a stunning red dress that Brandon had always loved, her best jewelry, and heels that made her feel powerful and confident. If she was going to destroy her cheating husband's life, she was going to look absolutely beautiful doing it. At 5 p.m., Luna knocked on her door. "It's time. They're getting ready for their dinner. Marion has no idea what's coming." They made their way to the beach, where the television crew was indeed setting up their equipment. The reporter, a young woman named Jessica, had been briefed on the situation and was clearly excited about the story she was about to witness. "This is going to be incredible," Jessica whispered to Luna. "We've never filmed anything like this before." Brandon and Marion appeared at 5:30, walking hand in hand toward their romantic table. Marion looked absolutely radiant in a flowing white dress, her hair perfectly styled, her face glowing with happiness and anticipation. She clearly had no idea what Brandon was planning, which made the evening even more special for her. Brandon looked nervous but excited, dressed in his best suit with a small jewelry box bulging in his pocket. He was probably imagining how perfect this moment would be, how romantic and memorable their engagement would be. He had no idea his wife was watching from behind a palm tree, ready to turn his perfect moment into his worst nightmare. "They're sitting down," Luna whispered. "The waiter is bringing champagne. Brandon is looking at the sunset, probably timing when to get down on one knee." Camila's heart was pounding. In just a few minutes she would walk onto that beach and expose Brandon's lies in front of Marion, the television cameras, and dozens of other hotel guests. There would be no going back after that. "Are you ready?" Luna asked. Camila looked at Brandon, sitting across from Marion at their romantic table, preparing to propose to another woman with money stolen from his wife. She thought about all the lies he had told, all the money he had spent, all the nights he had come home to her after spending days with Marion. "I'm ready," she said. "Let's destroy him." The champagne had just been poured when Camila stepped out from behind the palm trees and began walking across the beach toward Brandon and Marion's romantic dinner table. The television cameras, thinking she was part of the planned resort festivities, began filming her approach. Brandon saw her first. His face went through a series of expressions that would have been comical under different circumstances: confusion, recognition, terror, and finally, complete panic. He literally choked on his champagne, coughing and sputtering while Marion patted his back with concern. "Are you okay, honey?" Marion asked, her voice carrying across the beach in the evening quiet. Brandon couldn't speak. He was staring at Camila like he was seeing a ghost, his face draining of all color. The small jewelry box in his jacket pocket might as well have been a bomb, ticking away toward explosion. Camila reached their table and smiled pleasantly at Marion, who looked puzzled but polite. "Hi there," Camila said in her most cheerful voice. "I'm so sorry to interrupt your dinner, but I think there's been a misunderstanding." Marion looked between Camila and Brandon, clearly sensing tension but not understanding its source. "I'm sorry, do we know you?" "Not exactly. But I know both of you quite well. Marion, isn't it? The yoga instructor from Portland." "Yes." Marion's voice was cautious now. "And you are?" "I'm Camila Rodriguez Williams, Brandon's wife." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Marion blinked several times as if she hadn't heard correctly. Brandon made a sound that might have been a whimper. "His wife?" Marion's voice was barely a whisper. "For 7 years now. Here, let me show you." Camila pulled out copies of their marriage certificate and several photos of her and Brandon together. She set them on the table next to the champagne glasses. Marion stared at the documents, her face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror. "Brandon, what is this? What is she talking about?" Brandon finally found his voice, though it came out as a croak. "Camila, what are you doing here? How did I find you?" "Well, it's funny you should ask. My sister Luna manages this resort. She called me when she noticed that my husband was here with another woman, charging everything to my ATM card. Small world, isn't it?" Marion picked up one of the photos, a picture of Camila and Brandon at their wedding. Her hands were shaking. "Brandon, you told me you were divorced. You said your ex-wife was controlling and that you'd been separated for 2 years. Marion, I can explain." "Explain what?" Camila asked sweetly. "Explain how you've been lying to both of us for months? Explain how you've stolen over $15,000 from our joint account to fund your affair? Or explain how you were about to propose to another woman while still married to me?" Marion's face went white. "Propose? Brandon, were you going to?" Brandon's hand instinctively went to his jacket pocket, where the $3,500 ring was hidden. The movement didn't go unnoticed by anyone, including the television cameras that were now openly filming the confrontation. "Oh yes," Camila continued, "he has a beautiful engagement ring in his pocket. $3,500 charged to my credit card this morning. I have the receipt if you'd like to see it." Marion stood up so quickly that her chair fell over in the sand. "You bought me a ring with your wife's money?" "Marion, please let me explain. It's not what it looks like." "It's not what it looks like?" Marion's voice was rising, attracting the attention of other hotel guests. "You're married. You lied to me about everything." By now a crowd was gathering. The television crew was filming everything, and other hotel guests were openly staring at the unfolding drama. Luna appeared at the edge of the crowd, watching with satisfaction as their plan unfolded perfectly. "Brandon," Camila said, her voice still calm and pleasant, "why don't you tell Marion about all the romantic trips you've taken her on? The ones you told me were business conferences? Martha's Vineyard, Napa Valley, Key West, all paid for with money from our joint account." Marion's eyes filled with tears. "All those trips, you said you were successful, that you could afford to treat me well?" "He can't afford any of this on his own," Camila explained gently. "His consulting business barely breaks even. Every romantic dinner, every expensive hotel, every luxury vacation has been funded by his wife's salary. By my salary." "You're lying," Brandon said desperately. "Marion, don't listen to her. She's crazy, she's vindictive. We're separated, we're getting divorced." Camila pulled out her phone. "Brandon, you texted me yesterday. Would you like me to read it out loud?" "Missing you, babe. Denver is boring as usual. Can't wait to get home and see you. Love you." Does that sound like a separated man to anyone? The crowd murmured, clearly riveted by the unfolding drama. Someone in the back was filming with their phone, and Camila realized this confrontation was probably going to end up on social media within hours. Marion was staring at Brandon like she'd never seen him before. "You told me you were in Denver for business. You were texting your wife while you were here with me? Marion, please, I love you. I was going to leave her, I was going to tell her everything after we got engaged. With a ring you bought with her money. Marion's voice cracked. How could you do this to me? How could you make me part of this? She pulled off the promise ring Brandon had given her months earlier and threw it at him. It hit him in the chest and fell into the sand. And how could you do this to your wife? Marion turned to Camila. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I would never have, if I had known he was married. I believe you, Camila said kindly. You're as much a victim of his lies as I am. Brandon was looking back and forth between the two women, panic evident in every line of his body. This is all wrong. You're both overreacting. Camila, we can work this out. Marion, you know what we have together is real. What we have together is built on lies and theft, Marion said, her voice growing stronger. I don't even know who you really are. And what we have together is over, Camila added. Brandon, I've already filed for divorce. You'll be served with papers when you get back to Chicago. Brandon's face went even paler. You filed for divorce? When? This morning. My lawyer was very interested in all the evidence of your infidelity and financial fraud. Apparently, using your spouse's money to fund an extramarital affair is considered particularly egregious in divorce proceedings. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. The television reporter was getting everything on camera, and Camila could see Luna in the background, looking proud and satisfied. This is insane, Brandon said, standing up abruptly. I'm not going to stand here and be humiliated like this. Where are you going to go? Camila asked. Your credit cards are maxed out, your ATM card has been frozen, and your girlfriend just dumped you. Oh, and your wife is divorcing you. I'd say you're pretty much stuck here until your flight home on Sunday. Brandon's phone chose that moment to ring. He answered it desperately, probably hoping for some kind of rescue. Hello? What? No, that can't be right. Check again. His face went from pale to green. What do you mean the card was declined? He hung up and looked at the crowd of faces staring at him. The hotel says my card was declined for tonight's room service order. That's because I put a hold on all our joint accounts, Camila explained. I'm not paying for your affair anymore, Brandon. You're on your own now. The full weight of his situation was finally hitting Brandon. No money, no girlfriend, no wife, no dignity, and no way off the island for 2 more days. He was trapped in paradise with the ruins of his double life scattered around him like debris from a shipwreck. This isn't over, Camila, he said desperately. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, we can work it out. Camila looked at her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, standing in the sand with an engagement ring meant for another woman bulging in his pocket, his face streaked with tears and champagne, his lies finally exposed for everyone to see. No, Brandon, she said quietly. We really can't. What happened next would later be described by hotel guests as the most dramatic scene they had ever witnessed at a resort. Brandon, realizing that his world was completely collapsing around him, made one final desperate attempt to salvage the situation. Marion, please, he said, reaching for her arm. What we have is real. I love you. I was going to leave her anyway. Marion jerked away from his touch like she'd been burned. Don't you dare touch me. You made me the other woman, Brandon. You made me complicit in destroying your marriage without even telling me I was doing it. But you love me too. You can't just throw away what we have because of a technicality. A technicality? Marion's voice rose to a near shout. Your marriage is a technicality? The fact that you've been lying to me for 8 months is a technicality? The fact that every romantic gesture you've ever made was paid for with stolen money is a technicality? The crowd was growing larger as more hotel guests and staff gathered to witness the unfolding drama. The television crew was getting everything on camera, and the reporter was practically salivating at the ratings gold mine that had fallen into her lap. Luna stepped forward from the crowd. I'm Luna Martinez, the resort manager. I think it's time for everyone to know exactly what's been happening at my hotel. She addressed the crowd directly. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're witnessing is the exposure of a man who has been defrauding his wife and deceiving his girlfriend for months. Mr. Rodriguez Williams has been using his wife's money to fund an extramarital affair, lying to both women about his situation, and committing what amounts to financial fraud. The crowd murmured with disapproval. Several people pulled out their phones to film the confrontation, and Camila realized that by tomorrow, this scene would probably be viewed by thousands of people online. Furthermore, Luna continued, he was planning to compound his deception tonight by proposing to his girlfriend with a ring purchased using his wife's credit card, without her knowledge or consent. That's enough. Brandon shouted. This is none of your business. This is between me and my family. Your family? Marion laughed bitterly. I'm not your family, Brandon. I'm just another one of your victims. She turned to address the crowd herself. I want everyone to know that I had no idea this man was married. He told me he was divorced, that his ex-wife was controlling and manipulative. He made me believe that we had a future together while he was going home to his real wife every few weeks. Marion, please don't do this, Brandon begged. You're embarrassing both of us. I'm embarrassing us? Marion's eyes flashed with anger. You embarrassed yourself the moment you decided to lie to two women who trusted you. You embarrassed yourself when you decided to steal from your wife to impress your mistress. You embarrassed yourself when you planned to propose to me with jewelry you couldn't afford. She pulled the engagement ring from Brandon's pocket before he could stop her and held it up for everyone to see. This ring cost $3,500. Money stolen from his wife's account this morning. He was going to put it on my finger and ask me to marry him while he was still legally married to another woman. The crowd gasped. Someone in the back shouted, "That's fraud," and several people nodded in agreement. Brandon made a grab for the ring, but Marion tossed it to Camila. This belongs to you. You paid for it. Camila caught the ring and looked at it. It was actually quite beautiful, exactly the style she would have chosen for herself. The irony was bitter. Thank you, Marion. I'll make sure to return it and get my money back. This is insane. Brandon shouted again. You're all acting like I committed murder. People have affairs. It happens. People don't usually steal from their spouses to fund their affairs, Camila replied calmly. And they don't usually try to commit bigamy by proposing to their mistresses while still married. I wasn't going to commit bigamy. It was just a promise ring. A $3,000 promise ring that you bought with stolen money, Marion pointed out. After telling me for months that you were free to marry me whenever I was ready. The television reporter stepped forward with her microphone. Sir, would you like to comment on these allegations? Our cameras have been rolling for the entire confrontation. Brandon's face went white as he realized the full implications of the situation. Not only was his double life exposed in front of a crowd of strangers, but it was all being filmed for broadcast television. Turn those cameras off, he demanded. You can't film this without my permission. Actually, we can, the reporter replied. You're in a public space and this is newsworthy content. The story of a resort guest defrauding his wife to fund an affair is definitely something our viewers would be interested in. This will ruin me, Brandon said, his voice barely a whisper. You ruined yourself, Camila replied. I'm just making sure there are consequences for your actions. Luna stepped forward again. Mr. Rodriguez-Williams, I'm going to need you to settle your account immediately. Given the circumstances, the resort can no longer extend credit to you or your companion. I can't settle the account. You froze my cards. Actually, I froze our joint cards, Camila corrected. If you had any money of your own, you could still access it. But since your entire lifestyle has been funded by my salary, I guess you're out of luck. Marion was staring at Brandon like she'd never seen him before. You don't have any money of your own? At all? I have money. It's complicated. His consulting business barely breaks even, Camila explained to Marion and the crowd. He's been living off my income for years while pretending to be a successful entrepreneur. Everything you thought you knew about his success, his wealth, his ability to provide for you, it was all lies funded by his wife's paycheck. The humiliation on Brandon's face was complete. He had been exposed not just as a cheater but as a fraud, a thief and a liar. His girlfriend had dumped him, his wife was divorcing him, he had no money, and his shame was being broadcast on television. I need to get out of here, he muttered, turning to leave. Where are you going? Luna called after him. Your room has been unpaid for since this afternoon. Hotel security has been instructed not to let you back into the Ocean View suite. Brandon stopped walking. What do you mean I can't go back to my room? I mean the room that was paid for with your wife's money is no longer available to you. You'll need to find other accommodations. All my stuff is in there. Your belongings will be packed and held at the front desk. You can collect them once you've settled your account. Brandon looked around desperately as if hoping someone in the crowd would help him. But everyone was staring at him with a mixture of disgust and fascination, like he was an exotic animal in a zoo. This isn't over, he said to Camila, but his voice lacked any real conviction. Yes, it is, Camila replied. It's been over for a long time. I just didn't know it yet. As Brandon walked away, defeated and alone, the crowd began to disperse. Several people approached Camila to express their support and admiration for how she had handled the situation. Marion remained behind, tears streaming down her face. I am so sorry, she said to Camila. I had no idea. I would never have gotten involved with him if I had known he was married. I know, Camila said gently. You're not the villain in this story, Marion. We were both victims of his lies. How can you be so kind to me? I've been sleeping with your husband for months. Because you didn't know he was my husband. Brandon made sure of that. He's the only one responsible for this mess. Marion wiped her eyes. What happens now? Now we both move on with our lives and we both do better than Brandon Rodriguez Williams. As the luau officially began and the evening's entertainment started, Camila felt something she hadn't experienced in months: peace. The confrontation was over, the truth was exposed, and her lying, cheating, stealing husband was finally facing consequences for his actions. Tomorrow she would fly back to Chicago and begin the process of rebuilding her life. But tonight she was going to enjoy the luau, celebrate her freedom, and appreciate the fact that she would never again be married to a man who didn't deserve her. The next morning, Camila woke up feeling lighter than she had in months. The confrontation was over, Brandon's double life was exposed, and she was finally free to move forward with her life. But Luna had news that made the situation even better. Brandon spent the night in the hotel lobby, Luna reported over breakfast. Security wouldn't let him sleep on the beach and he couldn't afford another room. He's been calling everyone he knows, trying to get someone to wire him money for a flight home. Any luck? None. Apparently, his business partners don't want to be associated with someone who's been exposed as a fraud on television. And his friends aren't interested in helping a man who lied to everyone about his marriage. Camila should have felt sorry for him, but she didn't. Brandon had made his choices and now he was facing the consequences. There's more, Luna continued. The television segment aired this morning on the local news, and it's already going viral online. The reporter titled it, Paradise Lost, When Vacation Romance Goes Wrong. Brandon is becoming internet famous for all the wrong reasons. Luna showed Camila her phone, where the video of their confrontation had been posted on social media. It already had over 50,000 views and hundreds of comments, most of them expressing support for Camila and Marion and condemnation for Brandon. My lawyer called this morning too, Camila said. She's thrilled about all the evidence we gathered. The video footage, the receipts, the witness testimony. She says it's one of the strongest divorce cases she's ever seen. What kind of settlement are you looking at? Brandon's going to lose almost everything. The house, the cars, most of our savings. The court doesn't look kindly on spouses who commit financial fraud to fund extramarital affairs. Good. He deserves to lose everything. At noon, Luna received a call from hotel security. Brandon was causing a disturbance at the front desk, demanding access to his belongings and threatening to sue the resort. This should be interesting, Luna said. Want to come watch your soon-to-be ex-husband make an even bigger fool of himself? They arrived at the lobby to find Brandon arguing loudly with the desk clerk, looking disheveled and desperate. He had clearly slept in his clothes and his hair was sticking up at odd angles. I don't care what your policies are, he was shouting. Those are my belongings and I have a right to them. Sir, the desk clerk replied calmly, your belongings are available for pickup once you settle your outstanding account balance. I told you my cards aren't working. There's been some kind of mistake. Luna approached the desk. Mr. Rodriguez Williams, there's no mistake. Your wife froze the joint accounts that you've been using to pay for your stay here. The hotel requires payment before releasing any belongings. Brandon spun around, his eyes wild. This is all your fault. You had no right to interfere in my personal life. Actually, I had every right to protect my hotel from fraud. Using stolen credit cards is a crime, Mr. Rodriguez Williams. I didn't steal anything. That money belongs to both of us. Actually, Camila said, stepping forward, the money belongs to me. I earned it, I deposited it, and I have every right to prevent you from spending it on your affair. Brandon's face crumpled. Camila, please. I'm begging you. Just unfreeze the accounts long enough for me to get home. We can work this out. No, Brandon. We can't work this out. You made your choice when you decided to betray our marriage and steal my money. Now you get to live with the consequences. I'll be stranded here. You should have thought of that before you committed fraud. Luna pulled out her phone. Mr. Rodriguez Williams, I've been in contact with local authorities about your situation. Using your wife's financial accounts without her knowledge to fund personal expenses is considered fraud under Hawaiian law. The police are very interested in speaking with you. Brandon's face went white. You called the police? I called them this morning after reviewing all the charges to your wife's accounts. $15,000 in fraudulent expenses is a felony. As if on cue, two police officers entered the lobby. They approached Brandon with official-looking paperwork. "Mr. Rodriguez-Williams? We need you to come with us for questioning regarding charges of financial fraud and identity theft." "Identity theft?" Brandon's voice cracked. "Using your spouse's financial accounts without permission and forging her signature on hotel documents constitutes identity theft," one of the officers explained. "You'll need to come to the station for processing." As the police led Brandon away in handcuffs, Camila felt a surge of satisfaction. For months, Brandon had acted like he was above consequences, like he could lie and cheat and steal without ever having to pay for his actions. Now, finally, he was facing real legal consequences for what he had done. "Will he actually go to jail?" she asked Luna. "Probably not for long, but he'll definitely have a criminal record. And he'll have to make full restitution for all the money he stole from you. What about getting home? That's his problem now. The court will probably release him on his own recognizance, but he'll have to figure out how to get back to Chicago without access to your money." That afternoon, Camila received a call from Marion, who had also seen the news coverage of Brandon's arrest. "I just wanted to thank you again for how you handled everything yesterday," Marion said. "You could have been cruel to me and you weren't. That meant a lot. How are you doing with all of this?" "Better than I expected. I keep thinking about all the red flags I ignored. He never let me come to his house, never introduced me to his friends, never wanted to make our relationship public on social media. I thought he was being respectful of my privacy, but really he was just hiding me from his real life. You couldn't have known. He's very good at lying. I've been thinking about that ring too. $3,500 is more than I make in a month at my yoga studio. If I had known he was spending that kind of money on me, I would have questioned where it was coming from. Brandon is very good at making people see what he wants them to see. That's how he fooled both of us for so long. What happens now? Now we both start over. And we both do better than Brandon Rodriguez-Williams. I hope so. And Camila? If you ever want to come to Portland for a yoga retreat, you'll always have a friend here." That evening, as Camila packed for her flight home the next morning, she reflected on how much her life had changed in just a few days. She had arrived in Hawaii as a betrayed wife with a broken heart. She was leaving as a soon-to-be divorced woman with a bright future ahead of her. Her phone rang. It was her lawyer with an update on the divorce proceedings. "Camila, I have good news. Brandon's arrest for fraud has significantly strengthened our position. The court is prepared to award you the house, both cars, and 80% of your joint assets. Brandon will also be required to pay spousal support until the divorce is finalized." "And the criminal charges?" "He'll likely plea bargain to avoid jail time, but he'll have to make full restitution and complete community service. His reputation is completely destroyed, which means his consulting business is probably finished." "Good. Maybe next time he'll think twice before stealing from his wife." As Camila hung up, she felt a sense of justice finally being served. Brandon had spent months living a double life, funded by her hard work and built on lies. Now he would face the consequences of those choices for years to come. Tomorrow she would go home to Chicago and begin rebuilding her life. But tonight, she was going to enjoy her last evening in Hawaii as a free woman, finally liberated from a marriage that had been over long before she knew it. 3 weeks later, Camila was back in Chicago, settling into her new reality as a soon-to-be divorced woman. The house felt different without Brandon's presence, quieter, but also more peaceful. She had thrown away everything that reminded her of their life together and was slowly redecorating to reflect her own tastes instead of their compromised choices. The legal proceedings were moving quickly. Brandon's fraud charges and the overwhelming evidence of his infidelity had made the divorce settlement negotiations surprisingly straightforward. His lawyer had advised him to accept Camila's terms rather than risk even worse consequences at trial. Luna called every few days with updates from Hawaii, where the story of Brandon's spectacular downfall had become legendary among resort staff and guests. "He finally made it back to Chicago," Luna reported, "but not before spending 5 days sleeping in the Honolulu airport because he couldn't afford a hotel or an earlier flight. Apparently, his parents had to wire him money for a ticket home." His parents know what happened? Everyone knows what happened. The video has over 2 million views now, and it's been picked up by entertainment news shows. Brandon Rodriguez-Williams is officially internet famous as the world's worst cheating husband. Camila should have felt sorry for him, but she didn't. Brandon had humiliated her publicly by flaunting his affair and using her money to do it. Now he was experiencing his own public humiliation, and she felt no sympathy for him whatsoever. "How's Marion doing?" "She's actually doing great. She called me last week to thank the hotel staff for helping expose Brandon's lies. She said she's never been happier to be single. Good for her. She deserves better than Brandon. So do you? Speaking of which, there's someone I want you to meet." "Luna, I'm not ready to date anyone. My divorce isn't even final yet." "I'm not talking about dating. I'm talking about meeting a potential friend who happens to be male, successful, honest, and very interested in marketing consultancy work." Camila was intrigued despite herself. Since returning to Chicago, she had been thinking about starting her own marketing consultancy. After years of building other people's businesses, she was ready to build something for herself. What kind of business? His name is James Mitchell, and he owns a chain of boutique hotels on the mainland. He was a guest at the resort when your confrontation with Brandon happened, and he was impressed by how professionally you handled the situation. He saw the whole thing? He saw everything. And his comment was that any woman who could maintain that level of composure and strategic thinking under extreme personal stress would be exactly the kind of marketing professional his business needed. He wants to hire me based on watching me destroy my cheating husband? He wants to meet with you about a potential consulting contract. The romantic possibilities are just a bonus. Despite her reservations about getting involved with anyone so soon after her marriage imploded, Camila was curious about the business opportunity. Her divorce settlement would leave her financially secure, but she still needed to build a new career path. "Give me his contact information. I'll call him about the business opportunity. And if he asks you to dinner? Then I'll tell him I'm not ready to date, but I'm always ready to discuss business over a meal." 2 days later, Camila found herself sitting across from James Mitchell at an upscale Chicago restaurant, discussing marketing strategies for boutique hotels. He was exactly as Luna had described: successful, professional, and refreshingly honest about his business challenges. "I've been looking for a marketing consultant who understands luxury hospitality," James explained. "When I saw how you handled that situation in Hawaii, I knew you were someone who could think strategically under pressure. Most people would have been embarrassed to be associated with that kind of public drama. Most people don't understand that the way someone handles a crisis tells you everything you need to know about their character. You were betrayed in the worst way possible, but you maintained your dignity, protected an innocent woman from further deception, and made sure the person who wronged you faced appropriate consequences. That's exactly the kind of strategic thinking I need for my business." They spent 2 hours discussing his hotels, their target demographics, and the marketing challenges he was facing. By the end of the meal, Camila was excited about the potential project. "I'd like to offer you a 6-month consulting contract," James said. "It would involve traveling to each of my properties, developing individual marketing strategies, and implementing them with my staff. That sounds like exactly the kind of challenge I'm looking for." "Excellent. There's just one thing I should mention. The contract would require you to spend about a week at each property, working closely with management to understand their unique needs. One of those properties is Luna's resort in Hawaii." Camila smiled. "I think I can handle going back to Hawaii for business purposes." "Good. Because Luna mentioned that you might be interested in a permanent change of scenery. The Hawaii property needs an on-site marketing director, and the position comes with a beautiful apartment overlooking the ocean." The offer was tempting. Chicago held too many memories of her life with Brandon, and the thought of starting fresh in paradise was appealing. But Camila had learned to be cautious about making major life decisions too quickly. "Let me think about it," she said. "The consulting contract sounds perfect, but I'm not ready to make any permanent moves yet." "Of course. Take your time." As they prepared to leave the restaurant, James hesitated. "Camila, I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I'd like to ask you something that has nothing to do with business." "What's that?" "Would you be interested in having dinner sometime when we're not discussing marketing strategies? No pressure, no expectations. Just 2 people getting to know each other." Camila looked at James, really looked at him. He was handsome in a quiet, understated way, with kind eyes and an easy smile. He was successful but not arrogant, confident but not pushy. He was everything Brandon had pretended to be but never actually was. "James, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not ready to date anyone yet. My divorce isn't even final, and I'm still figuring out who I am outside of my marriage." "I understand completely. But when you are ready, I hope you'll consider it." "I will. And James? Thank you for seeing something in me worth investing in professionally. After everything that's happened, it means a lot to know that someone believes in my abilities." "Your abilities speak for themselves. Brandon Rodriguez Williams was an idiot to throw away someone like you. As Camila drove home that evening, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: excitement about her future. For too long, her life had been defined by her relationship with Brandon, by his needs and his deceptions and his betrayals. Now, finally, she was building something that belonged entirely to her. Her phone rang as she pulled into her driveway. It was her lawyer with news about Brandon. "Camila, I thought you'd want to know that Brandon's consulting business has officially filed for bankruptcy. Apparently, all of his clients dropped him after the video went viral, and he couldn't meet his financial obligations. What does that mean for our divorce settlement? It means you'll get the house and cars as planned, but there won't be much left in terms of other assets. The good news is that your separate accounts were never compromised, so your personal savings and retirement funds are intact. And the restitution for what he stole? He'll have to pay that back regardless of his business situation. The court has garnished his wages from any future employment until the debt is satisfied. So he'll be paying me back for years to come." "Exactly. Every time he gets a paycheck, a portion of it will go to you until he's repaid every penny he stole." After hanging up, Camila sat in her driveway for a few minutes, processing the complete reversal of fortune that had occurred in just a few weeks. Brandon had gone from living a luxurious double life to being bankrupt, unemployed, and facing years of financial consequences for his actions. Meanwhile, she had gone from being a betrayed wife to being a successful independent consultant with a bright future ahead of her. Justice, it seemed, had been served. That night, Camila called Luna to share the news about James's job offer and Brandon's bankruptcy. "I'm so proud of you," Luna said. "A month ago you were reviewing quarterly reports and ignoring the signs that your husband was cheating. Now you're starting your own consulting business and considering a move to paradise. It's been quite a transformation. And you're thinking about the Hawaii position?" "I'm thinking about a lot of things. For the first time in years, I feel like I have options instead of obligations." "What's holding you back?" "Fear mostly. Fear of making another mistake, fear of trusting the wrong person again, fear of building a life that could fall apart like this one did." "Camila, what happened with Brandon wasn't your fault. You didn't make a mistake by trusting your husband. He made a mistake by betraying that trust. I know that intellectually, but emotionally it's harder to accept. That's normal. But don't let Brandon's betrayal stop you from living your life. Don't give him that much power over your future." Luna was right. Brandon had already taken 7 years of Camila's life and thousands of dollars of her money. She wasn't going to let him take her courage and her hope for the future as well. "You know what? I think I am ready for a change of scenery. Tell me more about that apartment overlooking the ocean." "It's perfect, Camila. 2 bedrooms, a balcony with an incredible view, and it's walking distance from the beach. Plus, you'd be working with people who already know what you're capable of." "And James Mitchell?" "James is a good man. He's been through his own difficult divorce, so he understands what you're going through. But he's also patient enough to wait for you to be ready for whatever comes next." "Okay, I'll do it. I'll take the consulting contract, and I'll seriously consider the permanent position in Hawaii." "Really? Really? Brandon destroyed the life we built together, but that doesn't mean I can't build something better for myself. I'm so excited. We're going to have so much fun working together again. Just promise me one thing, Luna." "Anything. If I ever start dating another man who seems too good to be true, call his references." Luna laughed. "Deal. But I have a feeling James Mitchell's references will check out just fine." As Camila hung up the phone and began researching flights to Hawaii for her first consulting trip, she felt lighter than she had in years. The future was uncertain, but it was hers to shape. And after everything she had been through, that felt like the greatest gift of all. For the first time since discovering Brandon's betrayal, Camila was genuinely excited about what tomorrow might bring. 6 months later, Camila was standing on the balcony of her new apartment in Hawaii, watching the sunset paint the Pacific Ocean in shades of gold and crimson. Her consulting business was thriving, her divorce was finally finalized, and she was happier than she had been in years. The transformation in her life was complete. Gone was the stressed, overworked marketing executive who ignored red flags and made excuses for her cheating husband. In her place was a confident, successful entrepreneur who had built something beautiful from the ashes of her destroyed marriage. Her phone buzzed with a text from her lawyer. "Final divorce decree signed. You're officially free. Congratulations." Camila smiled and poured herself a glass of champagne to celebrate. After months of legal proceedings, documentation, and negotiations, her marriage to Brandon Rodriguez Williams was officially over. She was now Camila Rodriguez again, and she had never been happier to reclaim her maiden name. Luna appeared on the balcony with her own glass of champagne. Is this a private celebration or can anyone join? It's definitely a celebration worth sharing. The divorce is final, and I just signed the contract to buy this apartment. I'm officially a Hawaii resident. And how do you feel about that? I feel free. For the first time in years, every decision I make is mine alone. Every dollar I earn belongs to me. Every choice about my future is based on what I want, not what someone else expects from me. They clinked glasses and watched the sun sink lower toward the horizon. Any regrets? Luna asked. About leaving Chicago? None. About divorcing Brandon? Absolutely none. About confronting him publicly? Not even a little bit. Good. Because I have some news about your ex-husband that you might find interesting. I'm listening. He tried to get a job at a marketing firm in Chicago last month. The hiring manager Googled his name during the interview process. Oh no, Camila said, though she didn't sound particularly sympathetic. The video of his confrontation in Hawaii was the first search result. He didn't get the job. That's unfortunate for him. It gets better. He's apparently been trying to date again, but every woman he meets eventually discovers his internet fame. One of them called him the Hawaii cheater to his face. I should probably feel bad about that, but I really don't. You shouldn't feel bad. Brandon created his own reputation by cheating on his wife and stealing her money. The consequences are entirely his fault. Camila's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and smiled. It's James. We're having dinner tonight to celebrate my official Hawaii residency status. And how are things going with James? Slowly, carefully, but really well. Over the past 6 months, Camila and James had developed a friendship that was gradually becoming something more. He had been patient with her need to take things slowly, understanding about her trust issues and supportive of her business goals. Unlike Brandon, who had seen her success as competition, James celebrated her achievements and encouraged her ambitions. Hi James, Camila answered the phone. I was just telling Luna about my official Hawaii residency. Congratulations. I have a reservation at that new restaurant you wanted to try. Are you ready to celebrate properly? I'm ready for anything. After hanging up, Camila realized how true that statement was. For years, she had been afraid to take risks, afraid to trust her instincts, afraid to demand better for herself. Brandon's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been liberating. It had forced her to rebuild her life from scratch, and the result was stronger and more beautiful than what she had before. I should go get ready for dinner, Camila said. Wait, there's one more thing. Marion called me yesterday. How is she doing? She's engaged. To a yoga instructor from Portland who's never been married and has no secret wives anywhere. She wanted me to tell you that your advice about trusting her instincts changed her life. I'm so happy for her. She deserves someone honest. She also wanted me to tell you that she thinks about you every time she makes a financial decision with her fiancé. She said watching you take control of your life taught her the importance of financial independence in relationships. Camila felt a warm glow of satisfaction. Not only had she successfully rebuilt her own life, but her example had helped another woman avoid future heartbreak. As she got ready for dinner with James, Camila reflected on everything that had changed since that devastating phone call from Luna 6 months ago. She had lost a cheating husband, but she had gained a successful business, a beautiful home, and the respect of everyone who had witnessed her strength during the worst moment of her life. The restaurant James had chosen was elegant but not ostentatious, with a perfect view of the ocean and soft lighting that made everything feel romantic without being overwhelming. James was waiting for her at their table, looking handsome in a navy suit that brought out his eyes. You look beautiful, he said, standing to pull out her chair. You look pretty good yourself. So, officially divorced and officially a Hawaii resident. How does it feel? It feels like the beginning of something amazing. Over dinner, they talked about her business plans, his hotel expansion ideas, and their shared love of Hawaii's natural beauty. James was easy to talk to, funny without being silly, and genuinely interested in her thoughts and opinions. Can I ask you something personal? James said as they shared dessert. Of course. Do you ever regret how publicly you handled the situation with Brandon? Some people might have preferred to deal with it privately. Camila considered the question carefully. I used to think I should regret it. The public humiliation, the viral video, the complete destruction of his reputation. But then I remember that Brandon made his affair as public as possible while keeping me in the dark. He flaunted his relationship with Marion, used my money to do it, and would have proposed to her in front of a crowd if I hadn't stopped him. So you feel like you gave him what he deserved? I feel like I gave him exactly the same level of public exposure that he gave our affair. The only difference is that I told the truth and he was living a lie. And you're not worried about people thinking you were too harsh? James, my husband was stealing my money to fund an affair with another woman. He was planning to propose to his mistress while still married to me. If people think I was too harsh in exposing that, then they don't understand the magnitude of his betrayal. James nodded thoughtfully. You know what I admire most about how you handled everything? What's that? You protected Marion. You could have blamed her, humiliated her, made her the villain in the story. Instead, you made sure she knew the truth about Brandon and gave her the chance to make informed decisions about her future. Marion was as much a victim as I was. Brandon lied to both of us. Not every woman would have seen it that way. Most people would have been too angry to think clearly. I was angry. I'm still angry. But I was angrier at Brandon than at Marion, because Brandon was the one who made vows to me. As they walked along the beach after dinner, James took her hand. It felt natural and comfortable, nothing like the desperate, possessive way Brandon had touched her in the final months of their marriage. Camila, I know you're still rebuilding your life and learning to trust again. I don't want to rush you into anything you're not ready for. But I'd like to be part of your future when you're ready for that. Camila stopped walking and turned to face him. Under the moonlight, with the sound of waves in the background, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope for a romantic future that wasn't built on lies or deception. James, I care about you. More than I expected to care about anyone this soon after my divorce. But I need you to know that I'm different now than I was when I was married. Different how? I'm stronger. I'm more independent. I won't ignore red flags or make excuses for bad behavior. I won't lose myself in a relationship ever again. Good. I don't want you to lose yourself. I fell for the strong, independent woman who exposed her cheating husband and built a successful business from scratch. I don't want you to be anyone other than exactly who you are. And I need you to know that I'll never again be with someone I can't trust completely. If you're going to be in my life, it has to be with complete honesty and transparency. I wouldn't have it any other way. Camila looked into James's eyes and saw everything she had thought she saw in Brandon years ago, but this time it felt real. James had proven his character through his actions, his patience, and his respect for her boundaries. Okay, she said softly. I'd like you to be part of my future too. As James kissed her under the Hawaiian stars, Camila felt like the final piece of her new life had fallen into place. She had built something beautiful from the ruins of her marriage, and now she had someone worthy to share it with. 6 months ago, she had been a betrayed wife living a lie. Tonight, she was a successful businesswoman living her truth, surrounded by people who valued and respected her. Brandon had tried to destroy her, but instead he had set her free to become the person she was always meant to be. The revenge she had taken on her cheating husband had been sweet, but the life she had built afterward was even sweeter. And as she fell asleep that night in her own apartment, in her own bed, with her own successful business and her own bright future ahead of her, Camila Rodriguez knew that she had won far more than she had lost. Brandon Rodriguez Williams would spend years paying for his betrayal, both financially and socially. But Camila Rodriguez would spend those same years living the beautiful life she deserved, free from deception and surrounded by people who truly loved her. In the end, the best revenge had been living well.